On January 22, 1982, a seriously ill toddler in Sardinia was on the verge of death. Only a newly developed drug from Germany might be able to help, but the 3-year-old girl had 24 hours left at best. As a result, German Air Force soldiers risked everything to bring the life-saving drug to Sardinia by fighter jet, despite fierce snowstorms and icy runways. On that fateful day, winter paralyzed almost all of Germany. At around minus 23 degrees Celsius, or minus 9.4 degrees Fahrenheit, and 8 inches of fresh snow, hardly any cars were still driving, rail traffic was suspended, and flying was out of the question. Where it rained, the freezing cold turned the streets into dangerous slides. But the soldiers of the German armed forces had no time to wait for better conditions if they wanted to save the life of 3-year-old Jessica in Sardinia, 800 miles away. As if by divine providence, the doctor treating the patient there had learned about the German drug in a magazine and called the German airbase in the south of the island late Friday night. As the only available member of the German armed forces, he finally reached the duty officer, who probably could have simply put the doctor off due to his unusual request. Instead, however, he contacted his superiors in Germany and described the case with such urgency that his comrades also took up the request. First, they called the central pharmacy of the German armed forces to find out where the new drug might be available. Also, a suitable airport had to be found nearby from which the aircraft could take off reasonably safely despite the freezing rain. The choice fell on the Jagdbombergeschwader 34, a German fighter bomber wing, which would probably cope best with the weather. Since the drug could only be found at the manufacturer's premises, the police picked up the responsible authorized signatory from an opera performance and drove him to the company. They then took the valuable cargo on a convoy over 130 kilometers of icy country road to the airbase in Memmingen. In the meantime, all available soldiers had been called to duty to clear the runway of ice. As time was pressing, the Air Force confined itself to the middle of the runway, where First Lieutenant Jürgen Gundling was to take off in the notorious Starfighter in the direction of Sardinia. Because Germany had heavily modified their version of the Starfighter, there were enormously high crash rates, especially at the beginning of the integration. Between 1961 and 1989, nearly 1/3 of the 916 aircraft were lost and 116 pilots died. This gave the Starfighter the nicknames Erdnagel, nail in the earth, and Witwenmacher, widowmaker. But when it came to speed, the Starfighter was not to be outdone, which is why it was chosen despite the bad weather. While the aircraft and the starter units were being towed onto the runway, the German military attaché in Vienna was wrung out of bed to obtain clearance from his Austrian counterpart for the overflight. The Italian air bases of Trapani, Sigonella, Grosseto, Grazenice, and Gioia do Colle were put on standby so that the Starfighter could make an emergency landing there in the worst case. At about 2:30 in the morning, the police column reached Memmingen, and a quarter of an hour later, First Lieutenant Gundling was given the medicine in the cockpit. With a loud howl, the engine roared to life, and the supersonic jet slowly began to move. The soldiers watched with eager eyes as Gundling balanced the fighter over the narrow runway. Just a slight deviation to the left or right would mean the end of the mission, and perhaps even the pilot, because braking was out of the question on the icy takeoff surface. But the experienced pilot managed to maintain control of the aircraft and skillfully lift it off the ground before disappearing into the dense clouds. At the German airbase in Sardinia, however, things did not look any better. Heavy rain had flooded the airfield so badly that the power was out and the runway could not be lit. An energetic officer then rounded up everything that could drive and light up to manually light the runway. First Lieutenant Gundling would have to perform a radar-guided target landing in total darkness in the pouring rain while piloting an aircraft nicknamed the Widowmaker. After the first radio contact, a radar controller brought on duty calmly talked the pilot down to the only moderately lit runway and thus contributed significantly to the further success of the rescue operation. Following the successful landing, Italian gendarmes took the rescue medication to the hospital in Cagliari, where the attending physician received it and was able to administer it to the little girl in time. Hundreds of people were probably involved in the spontaneous action. Dozens of leaders took the decision to help on their own responsibility without first waiting for the okay from their superiors. In doing so, they put themselves in the line of fire in case something went wrong, and yet they did not hesitate. Moreover, the majority of soldiers were on duty voluntarily, serving a common goal in all weathers instead of relaxing at home on the sofa from the week. The fact that the rescue mission was so successful is probably also due to a portion of luck, but above all to the high level of commitment, dedication, professionalism, and humanity of all the people involved. They can be proud of their efforts because 3-year-old Jessica survived. A brotherhood that no one else could ever understand.